for how the ridership has been continually going up as the years have gone on. Up until 2012, we don't have the most recent figures, but we do know that ridership continues to go up. And this is the number of rides per year. So it's not like how many riders, obviously, because of the high numbers. But then you can see over, again, this is the past 20 years, we can see that the public, the Nassau County's public funds that they're putting into the bus system continually goes down. This was still when it was operated by the MTA, and it was going from, in 1999, 33.5 million. Now it's all the way down to 2.5 million for the private system. So we're really trying to show here just how big of a gap that is, and how Nassau County no longer is putting funds into the system and is no longer prioritizing bus riders, even though the ridership is continually increasing.
And how they're not putting it, they have to run out of money.
Yep, exactly. And how, we believe that bus riders need to be prioritized, and it doesn't matter if there's an economic crisis, we still have to prioritize bus riders, because if we don't, then those same bus riders are going to end up going to other social services and put a further drain on the economy instead of contributing to the economy with good jobs and good public transportation. So, this obviously does not make sense.
Speaking as a former Stop and Shop person, supposedly leaving the job, upper management, our rules were if an employee kept being late, they were fired. Walmart, my wife used to work for, we were continuously late, we were fired. Now we're talking about minimum wages.
Right. That's, I think it's like one of the top reasons why low-wage workers are fired is because they're late. And, we don't have
we don't have those specifics. No.
Yeah, we don't have the specifics, but we do know that because the wait time is increased so drastically, a lot of people are late. And they're consistently late, and that's really hard because when you have a job, especially when you're making low wages, if I come 15 minutes late to work or 20 minutes late to work, it's usually okay, because I can say, okay, sorry, I'm late this one time, and I know that because I have reliable transportation, I won't be late next time. Whereas, we can't say the same about the buses. But we're going to go now and talk a little bit about how bus riders have always been at the forefront of social movements.
And the reason we want to do this part with riders is to really show them, especially at Hempstead, which I think is so symbolic because it's the Rosa Parks Transit Center.
Absolutely.
I think that's scary. I remember that.
Yeah.
I was about 10 or 11 years old.
Yeah. So the reason we want to do this and kind of really give a history of all these different movements is because the struggles of bus riders are part of everyday life. And it's been that way for years and years and years. Ever since there's been public transportation, that has always been a significant part of our political life. So the first example that we give is the Montgomery bus boycott in 1955, and really kind of give background on it. So this was a boycott that lasted over a year. So it really shows the commitment of many of the bus riders, and kind of point to the way in which this particular instance in history was so that riders could completely eliminate segregation and fight until they were able to sit anywhere that they wanted to on the buses. Yeah, so that's the first movement that we point to. The next is the disability rights movement, and the way that disabled populations have been fighting for their rights to public transit since the 1970s.
Wow. So this was fairly recent. I was born in '78.
Yeah, the disability rights bus struggle is very recent, and it's something that continues to happen today. It's actually interesting. We were speaking to someone yesterday who was saying that many of the nice buses don't have operating lifts.
I'm telling you, they're not repairing.
Yeah.
From the inside, I can't, you can quote me on it, but don't put my name on it, because Roger knows me by name. But they're not repairing anything. Anything.
And they fired all the mechanics, right?
No. Well,
pretty much most. They didn't, a lot of them left, went to the MTA. A lot of them are leaving in the process, so you don't have very many mechanics. It's like a ghost yard.
I'll give you another example of all, because I deal with, we go out and we work with blind vets, and many of the machines where they designate where each stop is, they also don't work. They made a big stink that the MTA did repair. All they did was Band-Aid.
What, the registers?
You know, the audible
No, the
announcements.
buses itself,
Oh, okay.
supposedly. But, don't even want to get into that. All they did was switch buses temporarily and then took the good buses back.
Yeah. So in this particular movement in 1984, there were, I believe, over a dozen disabled riders who used wheelchairs who pretty much chained themselves together and blocked off a Chicago city street in protest of the Chicago Transit Authority purchasing over 300 new buses, none of them with lifts. This has been a struggle going on forever. There are still many disabled groups who are fighting public transportation authorities on this particular issue to ensure that their lifts are working and that all buses are accessible. Then we kind of bring about the two current bus rider unions that exist, one of them being Long Island, but the other being in Los Angeles. And the Bus Riders Union in Los Angeles is the world's largest grassroots advocacy group for public transportation. They formed in 1992, and they actually have won, I think, a really large civil rights case. They sued the LA Transportation Authority, the LA MTA, for violating Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, where their monies were obviously not funding the bus system in a very racist manner, because over 80% of their ridership were people of color. I believe over 60% were women, and I believe 90% were people who were poor. I'm sorry?
Latino poor.
Yes. Yeah. So they sued, and they won their case, where the LAMTA signed a 10-year contract that pretty much mandated that they fund funding the transportation authority was their primary responsibility. And this is a group that still exists in LA. They're still fighting strong. Some of their other victories were that they won a no fare increase for 9 years. They were able to instill more bus hours into their routes, and they also were able to get an increase in ridership. And then we point to the Long Island Bus Riders Union, formed in January 2012, and
I met you.
working our way up. Yeah, that was the first day that I ever flyered. That's when we met.
I lost the flyers, but I printed out a copy from your site.
Yeah. So, and then when describing our union, we point out the demands that we have right now. Our top demand being no fare increase in 2013.
Put it this way, Suffolk County, who basically is run by townships, things like that.
We tried to get, Pat tried to get really tried to.
They've worked, actually, they're right, this is the first time in 14 years they actually increased their,
We did ask the owner of that Suffolk Bus to take us over.
and also they actually have been working with, we have several buses that come to the VA, and all disabled veterans still pay. Yes.
Because
And
they
yet,
couldn't do it on that subsidy.
and actually they get more money as a township than they do as a county.
Well, Suffolk County, the county itself puts in, what, like 34 million in
Yep.
the system? And you know what's funny? We have the same budget deficit. We should actually do a slide on this. That we have the same budget deficit in Suffolk County. There's a huge budget deficit, but there's still 34 million being put into the system. And yet in Nassau County, we only have 2.5 million being put into the system, and we have the same budget deficit. We're in the same economy.
Do you know who's on the watchdog board? Watchdog board?
The Transit Advisory Board.
Yes.
Oh yeah, the guy from the taxi company.
You know who he is?
I don't know.
He was D'Amato's vice president.
Yep.
Really?
He stopped being his president in December of 2010,
Yep.
and he became the head of tax.
I wonder what they're paying them for this, because we know they're paid.
I didn't know that, but don't you think he's a conflict of interest
Oh,
if
yeah.
he's with
Oh.
D'Amato and D'Amato's with Mangano?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, everybody forgot, and this is public record. Alphonse D'Amato, who is the treasurer of the party, supported Mangano and gave him extra money.
Well, the Veolia gave him $100,000.
Yeah.
And McBride is the one that got him, gave the, what do you call that, fundraiser dinner.
Oh, I don't know.
So it's really dirty.
I think, then I suggest, wouldn't this be a good case for an ethics review? Conflict of interest?
That's what I would think, but I,
So
you
would
know.
I myself am still trying to find out where the so-called money came from. I have been told through the grapevine, and I can't get anybody in the townships to admit it, but actually part of the money's been borrowed from the county. In other words, the money that was to be used to buy the bus system was actually borrowed from the county. But I
Okay.
cannot get this done yet, but a year ago, came across a couple of articles about Alphonse D'Amato doing a few things, and I was wondering what it was all about. Now I found out. So Alphonse D'Amato has...
But this wasn't done deal before we found out about it. This was well done a year before we found out.
And we
about
should
it.
also find out, I'm still trying to find out, that's one thing they won't let go also, is who has stock in it. And from what I've understood, D'Amato also has that. Don't forget, this man has gotten away with retired as a senator of the United States, because if they didn't, they would have investigated him about the Swiss banks. That was the...
Swiss banks doing what?
he was on the panel forcing the Swiss banks to pay Holocaust survivors. But he was getting a commission from the Swiss banks to work it out. He left that, and then some years later on, when he was working for the county board, he, what was it? What do we call the one with the housing? It's
one
low
in-
budget housing.
In Island Park, where he got all his family.
Yes, he's starting with his secretary. It's a low-income housing, and first person to move in it is his secretary.
Alright. Do you want to just keep going?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, please do.
Yeah, so those are the four key movements that we'll be highlighting. And then after that, just have kind of a brief engaging discussion of why is it important to have a bus riders union, and why is it important in the current state of Nassau County's bus system to have a bus riders union. And get people to say things like, well, bus riders are the ones who know what they need, and therefore bus riders should be listened to. Those should be the first people that any bus company goes to in order to know what changes need to be made and what changes shouldn't be made. But also bus rider empowerment, so that bus riders feel as though that they can get their voices heard and that their voices are very important. But also to have a body of people who are ensuring that the companies are accountable to what they're doing, and that they're accountable to the riders, and to ensure accessible, reliable, and affordable public transportation. It's really only the big movement of riders and the riders coming together that will get something like that done.
Prime example is you look at the Long Island Railroad.
That's right. Well, actually, very interesting. The Long Island Railroad, I really wanted to compare the Long Island Railroad bus rider, the Long Island Railroad riders with the Long Island bus riders, because the Regional Economic Development Councils, this is kind of policy wonky stuff, but the Regional Economic Development Councils are distributing money. And one of the groups that is trying to get money from the development councils is the Long Island Railroad, the MTA. And they're making an argument that this is about economic development and using the railroad as a good investment in terms of development. And they also utilize the argument that the average person who rides the railroad makes $115,000 a year. That's the average salary of somebody who rides the railroad. And then you look at the bus rider's average salary, and it's far below $35,000 per family of four.
28,000.
Yeah, it's about
28,000.
28,000.
28,500.
So if you compare those two stats and you look at what already is being subsidized during the MTA's reign, and I'm sure it's only worse now, when the subsidies were heavy, they were subsidizing bus riders. Every ride a bus rider took was being subsidized by the county at the rate of 67 cents, versus every ride that a rail...
18 cents now?
No, well, I don't know, I have to look at the current statistics, but these are statistics from 2010.